Coming up tonight on the News at 5, lawmakers return to Helena and convene for the 67th session of the Montana legislature. Plus,
we must seize this opportunity and act. To do so will require leadership, but no one can lead all by themselves.
Greg Gianforte is sworn in as Montana's 25th governor.
From Montana's news leader, this is MTN News at 5.
Good afternoon and welcome to the News at 5. I'm Marian Davidson. Thanks for joining us. Montana's 2021 legislature started today at the state capitol, and despite the pandemic, most lawmakers showed up in person for the swearing-in proceedings. And as MTN's chief political reporter Mike Dennison tells us, the first day, which is largely ceremonial, was not without its moments of division.
While at least some of the session's proceedings will be done remotely or carried out with social distancing at the Capitol, that was mostly not the case on Monday. All but a few of the 100 House members crammed into their chamber for swearing in and electing their leaders for the session. Democratic members wore face masks, but most Republicans did not. In the Senate, however, about half of minority Democrats took part via Zoom from remote locations. Republicans have huge majorities at the 2021 session, 67 to 33 in the House and 31 to 19 in the Senate. Republicans said Monday they have a mandate from voters to enact new Republican Governor Greg Gianforte's agenda for business-friendly policies and less government. But they also said they want to ensure the session is conducted safely.
It is my priority to ensure a safe and healthy working environment for all in the Capitol building this session. That includes virtual participation for legislators and constituents. This will be the most accessible legislative session in history.
And Democrats said they're ready to be part of the discussion as well.
Our caucus is ready to build on our investment in infrastructure, to protect our gains in access to health care, and to make sure that we're investing in public education. These are things that Montana families need to thrive and survive across the state, and we hope that you'll join us.
Outside the Capitol, some Helena residents picketed to protest Republicans' refusal to enact stricter health guidelines at the session, including the wearing of masks. And a pro-Trump contingent also rallied in front of the building, where some attendees criticized moderate Republicans for undermining conservative policies. But back inside the Capitol, conservatives lost one of their first skirmishes on the House floor. They tried to impose a set of temporary House rules, which they said would give conservative Republican leadership a clear hand to enact the will of the voters.
I, for one, do not want to face the people back home who told me, please do as we asked you. Please enforce rules that are going to free up the people in the state of Montana and allow them to exercise personal responsibility and personal freedoms which have been denied to them in the last 10 months.
That move failed on a 42 to 58 vote, with 25 Republicans joining all 33 House Democrats to defeat it. That means conservative and moderate Republicans must work out a set of rules they can agree on as the session gets started this week. The rest of this week is mostly organizational meetings, with committees figuring out the technological landscape for remote testimony and other social distancing steps. But on Thursday, Governor Greg Gianforte presents his proposed changes to the state budget, and work on that budget and other issues will begin in earnest. At the Capitol, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
The session is scheduled to continue through April. And Greg Gianforte took his oath of office this morning, becoming Montana's 25th governor and Montana's first GOP governor in 16 years. At the swearing-in event, he outlined core principles that he emphasized during his campaign: economic growth, more jobs, a more responsive and more frugal government. Gianforte also promised to lead Montana's comeback from the economic devastation of the pandemic and talked about the new heroes of the pandemic, like frontline healthcare workers, first responders, teachers, and parents staying home to teach their children.
I am confident that with vaccines and increased testing, we will get a better handle on our response to COVID-19. I am confident that our economy will rebound. I am confident Montanans will get back to work in good-paying jobs.
Also sworn in today were Secretary of State Christy Jacobson, State Auditor Troy Downing, and the only statewide office holder starting a second term, Superintendent of Public Instruction Elsie Arnson. Now, those 4 statewide offices had already been in Republican hands. Gianforte's victory gives the party all 5 seats on Montana's land board. And Montana's only congressman, Matt Rosendale, was sworn into office on Sunday in Washington, D.C. But the new GOP congressman would not say whether he plans to join House Republicans Wednesday, who will challenge presidential voting results in certain states. Rosendale won election in November as Montana's new and only U.S. House member, defeating Democrat Kathleen Williams. He is succeeding Republican Greg Gianforte. In a statement, Rosendale said Sunday evening that he is excited to get to work, get the job done, and produce results. Yet his congressional office ignored questions from MTN News about what he will do on Wednesday when the House meets to approve the presidential electoral vote results. Some Republican U.S. House members and senators, including Montana Republican Steve Daines, said they will challenge the presidential voting results in some states if an election commission is not formed to audit the results in disputed states. Now, votes by the House or Senate to uphold any challenges are expected to fail. All right, now it's time for a check of our forecast with Chief Meteorologist Curtis Grevenitz.
Well, good Monday afternoon, Mary. Good Monday afternoon, everybody. We've had a bit of cloud cover out there, and believe it or not, a new storm moving in here. Happy New Year to everybody, if I haven't told you already here. But a little rain, a little snow moving through, and we actually have some parts of the state under a winter weather advisory. That looks like Helen is under the winter weather advisory, but it is not. And we've got a high wind watch for the Rocky Mountain Run. Boy, how about that wind over the weekend, especially yesterday? We'll take a look at some of those wind gusts, but a nocturnal storm coming through tonight at night. Gusty again, some pretty strong winds, high wind watch, but not as bad as yesterday or Saturday, and a wee bit wintry. Let you know when you can expect some snow in the forecast.
All right, now taking a look at the state's COVID-19 situation, Montana COVID-19 case numbers continue to drop. Now, 11 more deaths were reported since last night, including 2 in Lewis and Clark County. That brings the statewide death total to 1,019. The number of active cases currently sits at 5,000, and active hospitalizations continue to fall and currently are below 200. Now, MTN uses a combination of state and local data to provide you with the most up-to-date numbers regarding COVID-19 in our state. And because of that, our numbers may differ from the state. And across the country, COVID-19 hospitalizations are reaching alarming new records, with more than 125,000 Americans battling the virus in hospitals over the weekend. Health officials worry the worst is still to come as millions return from holiday trips. Now, December was the most infectious and deadly month in the U.S. since the start of the pandemic, and the situation is dire just days into January. ICUs maxed out, ambulances in cities like LA and Memphis lining up for up to 8 hours to offload patients. Now, this comes as healthcare workers in some states start to receive their second doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, and as the U.S. works to speed up a slower than projected vaccination rollout. And the original COVID-19 vaccination plan in Montana put people over 65 years or older and those with underlying health conditions in the same category. In December, former Governor Steve Bullock announced an update to the plan based on new recommendations by the CDC. Now, some people between the ages of 65 and 74 may have to wait an additional 6 months to get the vaccine. MTN's Matt Holzaffel reports.
One Montana resident told us she's frustrated at the change in the phases of the state's COVID-19 vaccination plan. She's 68 and her husband is 76. Under the updated plan, she may have to wait an additional 6 months for a vaccine than originally anticipated.
That's what has been on the CDC guidelines since the jumpstart.
A December recommendation from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention provided guidance for states when doses of COVID-19 vaccines are limited. That recommendation includes sorting people over the age of 75 into Phase 1B and anyone between the ages of 65 and 74 or with underlying medical conditions into Phase 1C. This is also due to the fact that vaccines are just simply not rolling out as fast as they anticipated.
Well, yeah.
Is that frustrating to hear?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
In mid-December, former Governor Bullock announced that the state's anticipated allocation of vaccine doses had been reduced by 20%. We reached out to the CDC to find out why the 65 and older group had been split into 65 to 74 and 75 plus. They sent us a statement that reads, in part, vaccine allocation to people 75 years and older is supported by their high risk for COVID-19 associated morbidity and mortality and is anticipated to also reduce hospitalizations in this group, easing the burden on strained healthcare systems. They also said cumulative evidence of COVID-19, cumulative hospitalizations, and mortality rate among people 75 and older were higher than people between the ages of 65 and 74. Yet people like Wendy are still concerned. She says she's reached out to the state, but hasn't heard back.
All right, that was Matt Holzaffel reporting, and when we come back, Chief Meteorologist Curtis Grevenitz will have a complete check of your forecast and storm tracker weather, and later, how the upcoming Georgia runoff results could impact everyone.
With Chief Meteorologist Curtis Grevenitz.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Happy New Year to you all. Thanks for joining us here on this Monday afternoon. What incredible wind over the course of the weekend. Deep Creek just south of the East Glacier area, almost 100 miles per hour. East Glacier at 86, Browning a peak wind gust of 80. Helena yesterday afternoon, 68 miles per hour. You're probably like, yeah, I felt that. Great Falls, 67 mile per hour wind yesterday afternoon. Fortunately, that wind is gone. We do have a little wind to talk about and a little wintry weather. Boulder Hill might have a little snow coming up here tonight into tomorrow morning. Certainly looks like snow with the cloud cover out there. Great Falls sitting at 44 degrees, gusts up to 40 miles per hour. It's nothing compared to 67. And in Helena, a darker day, temperature 39 degrees, light east wind at 7 miles per hour. 30s and 40s. Yeah, maybe not the warmest day, but not January cold like it can be here in Montana. And the wind, yeah, pretty breezy up around the Great Falls area and then around Livingston as well. Butte, America, some pretty good wind there as well. Speaking of Butte and the higher elevations of southern Lewis and Clark County, not including Helena, under a winter weather advisory here. Light snow, an inch or two. There may be a few locations like up there around Georgetown Lake and the Big Hole Valley of up to about 5 inches of snow. Also under a winter weather advisory, we have the East Glacier area through West Glacier, up to about 5 inches of snow and blowing snow an issue. And yes, the brown here indicating where there is a high wind watch for Tuesday night into Wednesday. So where's the next storm? Well, it's kind of like the previous few storms where we saw most in the way of precipitation west of the Continental Divide. Had a little snow around Deep Creek Pass here earlier, also a little snow up over around Lincoln and Flesher Pass, Rogers Pass as well. Most of this will be west of the divide like the last few storms have been, but there will be a little squall line that comes through around the Helena area tonight between 10 and about midnight that will likely produce a little mix of some rain and snow. Elsewhere around the country, let me roll out of the way here, it's fairly quiet. Here's a look at what will happen though through the rest of this evening. Yeah, right around 10, 11 o'clock, we'll likely have a mix of some rain and snow around Helena, perhaps a few flakes of snow east of the Continental Divide out across the prairies there. Through the overnight, yeah, maybe even a rain shower through parts of Fergus County up into northeast Montana. But this system will move out very quickly on Tuesday, so maybe a little icy in the morning around Glasgow, but look for increasing sunshine and increasing wind as we go through the day Tuesday as the storm moves out and high pressure moves in. Another pretty windy day, not like Saturday or Sunday, but it will be a fairly windy day, and then mostly sunny skies for most of the state by the afternoon. Heading into Wednesday, fairly quiet weather, just a little cloud cover increasing with the next system that will come through most of Montana here on Thursday. That's when we could have a little additional snow, but there you can see some of that snow in the higher terrain mainly and the southwestern part of the state through tonight into tomorrow. So speaking of tonight, a windy night, a mild night again, lows generally above the freezing point for many locations, close to the freezing point northeast Montana. A couple of rain showers mixed with some snow central Montana, and again around the Helena area, a little burst of mixed rain and snow coming through between 10 and about 2 in the morning. Here's the forecast for tomorrow. Very windy, some gusts maybe up over 50 miles per hour out across the High Line. Glasgow, maybe a little mix of rain and snow early tomorrow morning. Lewistown, a little mix overnight into tomorrow. And Helena, mostly sunny, temperatures in the 40s. Here's the 7-day forecast for the capital city. A little light snow coming through on Thursday, maybe about an inch or two. We'll take a closer look at that coming up in the forecast at 6. The weekend looking pretty nice, 30s and partly cloudy, light wind, certainly a lot lighter than last weekend. And for Great Falls, windy tomorrow and Wednesday, a little light snow Thursday, and then the weekend looking pretty good for January.
Thanks for that, Curtis. President Donald Trump and President-elect Joe Biden are both in Georgia today, making a final pitch ahead of tomorrow's runoff election. Many changes Americans are waiting for across the country will depend on who is elected in this runoff. Alexa Liacco shows us the incredible efforts being made to make sure every vote is counted.
History is yet again knocking on Georgia's door. A birthplace for civil rights and equality is now a final battleground for the nation's Senate.
Everybody has their eyes here on Georgia.
This moment, months in the making for organizer Macy Hall.
We started off with the primaries, traveling all the way from Houston to Atlanta.
Now she and voting rights advocates from March On are crossing the state of Georgia ahead of the highly contested Senate runoff.
We have so much work to get done, especially here in the state of Georgia.
Their first step, getting voters to the polls Tuesday.
Right now, it's a lot of things that we can't control, but what we can control is our vote and our voice.
And Hall is using her voice to fight for
voter protection, voter education, and really combating voter suppression.
But she's not the only one speaking up.
This election is just as important as the presidential election.
Whether it's in-person events like this, encouraging people to come get their questions answered, or broadcasts on Facebook Live, organizers are out in Georgia like never before to get people to come out and vote. And that's because what happens in this Senate runoff will touch every single American.
Members of the TPS Alliance came from all over the country to ask voters to help start a new era for immigration policies.
I'm just doing this for my community and to stay with my parents and fight for my human rights.
The outcome of this vote could change Rebecca Vasquez's life.
This would mean that I would get to stay here with my family, with my parents. This would mean that I would get to go to college. My mom would get to, I'm only 15, so my mom would get to see me walk across the stage, at my graduation. So it would mean everything to me. It's my future we're talking about here.
Immigration policies, healthcare policies, and environmental laws for the entire nation could all see changes this year depending on how Georgia votes. Democratic challengers John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are up against Republican incumbents Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. The actions of organizers are already paying off. The runoff election has already seen record-breaking early voter turnout, especially with minority voters. But all of these activists agree their work is only beginning.
We want to ensure that moving forward, the work that we've done now with this runoff election is going to continue on.
A vote for Georgians with power far beyond state lines. I'm Alexa Liacco reporting.
Well, a new round of stimulus checks means new warnings about scams. The Better Business Bureau says con artists are contacting people claiming they need to provide personal information to receive the stimulus funds. The BBB says scammers are using text messages, email, and robocalls about the new COVID-19 stimulus checks and direct deposits. The government wants to remind people that there are no processing fees involved with the stimulus payments and to report anyone asking for you to pay first. And coming up next on the News at 5, one organization is asking for help to make Valentine's Day special for vulnerable kids.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching MTN News at 5.
Welcome back to the News at 5. A Great Falls child advocacy organization is asking for help to show kids in foster care some love on Valentine's Day. The local chapter of Court-Appointed Special Advocates, also known as CASA, is asking for Valentine's Day cards. They can be handmade or store-bought and will be given to local foster kids who have experienced abuse and neglect. The chapter's executive director says the cards are important because Valentine's Day can be isolating for these kids.
I used to be a foster parent, and then my husband was in foster care, and this would have been something that would have been neat for him when he was in foster care, and then also for our foster kids that we had. I think that would have been really neat to show the kids that we had that, hey, here's some Valentines from people in the community, and you're loved and you're appreciated and you're not alone.
Head on over to our website, ktvh.com, for instructions on how to help out and submit cards. And up next, some tips for if, or should I say when, you win the lottery. But first, here is what's coming up on Nightly News.
When we welcome our West Coast viewers, frustration over bottlenecks slowing COVID vaccine distributions and what's being done about them. Also, gas prices creeping up in the middle of a pandemic. Why and what you can do to save money when we see you back here tonight for Nightly News.
Montana's news leader. You're watching MTN News at 5.
Well, if you feel lucky this week, you might want to buy a Powerball or Mega Millions ticket, or both. Both jackpots passed the $400 million mark with no winners over the weekend. Now, here's some tips for if or when you win. Experts say anyone who wins should be careful who they tell to avoid scam artists and take steps to protect yourself. The odds of winning Mega Millions is 1 in 302 million and Powerball is 1 in 292 million. And thanks so much for making us part of your evening. NBC Nightly News is next.